Good morning, everyone, and welcome to ChatGPT for Beginners. We're glad to have you join us for what promises to be an informative and very engaging session. We have a few guidelines before we get started to ensure an enjoyable experience for all. Please mute your microphone, even if you're not speaking. It helps minimize that background noise. This session is being recorded and will be distributed to everyone in the next day or so. And with that, we encourage you to allow yourself to be fully present for the next 60 minutes. Don't worry about taking extensive notes. We will also send out the resources after the session. Cary wants you to ask a lot of questions, and if you have a specific scenario, keep that in mind. We'll run through a few of those at the end. And as always, be kind, be respectful, and have fun. We encourage you the use of emojis and reactions throughout. Let us know what you like, what made you laugh, and what you'll use moving forward. We're excited to get going. So with that, I will turn it over to Dan.
Well, thank you, Heather. It's great to be here this morning, and I want to take a quick second to thank both Dana and Cary for their participation here. This is our webinar number 3 in an 8-part series. Dana will talk a little bit about that at the end of the conversation, but I just really thankful to hear. Our center launched in 2021 and speeds the delivery of critical training to both trainees and employers. The Harold Alfond Center will serve 24,000 Mainers by year 2025, and we're working in the following 3 areas: pre-hire training to give skills to learners to enter new professions, incumbent worker training through our compact work, through the Maine Workforce Development Compact, which has over 1,400 members to date, and scholarships that we offer to compact trainers or students to earn additional college credits through our community college for a certificate or a degree program. These programs are supported by public and private funds to advance the ability of Mainers to achieve their economic goals and getting more of our Mainers skilled in positions so they can support their family. Again, I want to thank both Dana and Cary for all your support on this webinar. And Dana, it's off to you now.
Thank you, Dan, for those kind words, but also I want to thank you on behalf of the Maine Community College System, because you and your Alfond Center are definitely leading us into the new economy and preparing our people to be able to address those needs. So we thank you for that. And I want to welcome all to today's or this month's webinar. My name is Dana Connors. I am pleased to be the host, and frankly, for this I think Heather said it well, it's a very timely and significant topic that we're discussing today: demystifying artificial intelligence, ChatGPT. Those are, for beginners, which I am one, that's a very timely and important issue, and I appreciate so much that we have this opportunity. And we are thrilled to have Cary Weston join us for an enlightening session about this very topic. ChatGPT is a revolutionary tool in the world of artificial intelligence. And if you've been curious about ChatGPT, but feel a bit unsure about where to start, you're in the perfect place. Are you one of those like myself that doesn't really know whether to revere it or to fear it? I do anyway, and I'm sure you do as well, want to embrace it, but concerned about some of the pitfalls we may face, some of the barriers that we're not aware of. Well, our guest today is going to help us with that and so much more. Cary Weston, our distinguished speaker, is not just an expert, but a true pioneer in the realm of ChatGPT. As the president and chief marketing officer of Sutherland Weston, Cary brings a wealth of knowledge and experience. He's been at the forefront of exploring how ChatGPT can transform our everyday life, especially in marketing strategies. His insights are not only shared through his popular weekly newsletter, which is called the ChatGPT Experiment, but also on his recently launched podcast, available on both Apple as well as Spotify. His talent for transforming complex artificial intelligence concepts into practical, actionable strategies has made him a highly sought-after voice in the industry. In today's interactive workshop, Cary will simplify the complexities. He will make it approachable and relevant for all of us. Whether you're a complete beginner or someone with basic knowledge of artificial intelligence, this session is tailored for you. We'll delve into the basics, its practical applications, and how ChatGPT can help us streamline daily tasks and boost marketing efforts. Plus, you have the unique opportunity to engage with Cary during the live question and answer session, as Heather pointed out. Get ready to have your questions answered and gain insights from one of the leading experts in the field. Cary's approachable, I can attest to that, and jargon-free style makes learning about artificial intelligence both enjoyable and informative. He has also agreed, because of this issue and the time it takes to do it justice, if it's necessary to stay on a bit longer than the scheduled time, we're prepared to do that. So as I say on occasions like this, without further ado, Cary, we're looking forward to exploring the future of artificial intelligence with you and together.
Hey, good morning, Dana. Yeah, thanks for having me. And when I hear an introduction like that, I wonder who they're talking about, to be honest with you. But I appreciate the kind words. And hello to everybody. Glad you're here. I am in Orlando at the moment. I'm in a hotel room in Orlando, but before anyone feels like I got away with something when the snow came, it was 41 degrees with a good 15 to 20 mile an hour wind today. So I'm thankful that I brought my flannel bathing suits down here. So Dana, did you have anything in particular that you wanted me to start with, or you want me to just start going? Yeah.
Just start going.
So yeah, so let me share a quick story. And I think I took a look at the registrants. So I know there's some educators and folks that are involved in the education system here, so you'll appreciate this. I attended the University of Maine, and the first paper that I ever passed in as a freshman came back to me with a big old red F circled on it. And I got an F on that paper, not because of anything that was in the paper. In fact, I don't think she actually ever looked at it or read it. But the comments that were underneath the F, where you hand wrote this paper, you've got to use a computer. And I've been around the sun 51 times. And at that point, as a freshman, I didn't know how to use a computer. And she said, you better learn. And if any of you have been through college at that point, there was a computer lab. There wasn't readily accessible computers. There was a long line, and you had to be at 11, 12, 1 in the morning to actually access anything. So I share that because my introduction into technology and computers came as a sink or swim situation. I was forced to become curious in a hurry, and that's really kind of set the path for curiosity in myself moving forward. Everything that I have learned in terms of technology and computers and all that has just come from sheer curiosity and digging in because I needed to, or I was interested in learning it. And I share all that because curiosity really is the formula for understanding ChatGPT, its value, because it's really a powerful tool that needs to be relevant to the individual. It's not software where you have to learn how to do things a specific way. It's really it's become a problem-solving tool for many. Myself, it's an essential daily asset. But I share that because in the work that I do with not only clients, but regarding ChatGPT, curiosity becomes kind of the guiding principle that I encourage everyone to have. And in my everyday life, I say I like to help organizations solve marketing problems in practical and profitable ways. And I do that with 3 pillars that I pay attention to. And one is clarity, and one is consistency, and one is reliability. And clarity is really simplifying messages for impact and action. Consistency is creating, let's say, efficiency and value through kind of systems and processes in our daily work. And reliability is scaling the experience that we have for educating, informing, and inspiring others on a regular basis. And those three pillars really are what I use ChatGPT for. It's some of the things that we'll go through here, and clarifying, creating systems, and making ourselves scalable. That's really where I've found a lot of the value. I do want to share, as we're talking today, and I know Heather mentioned it, if you have a question, throw it in chat. I want to make it as relevant to you as possible. I hear myself talk all the time, so I don't need to hear myself talk if I can make it relevant to something that you have on your mind. And if you have a situation, if you have a goal or a project or a scenario that you think you'd like to see kind of ChatGPT play out, I'd like to grab a couple of those towards the end here and do kind of a live walkthrough as to maybe how I'd tackle it with ChatGPT, so I can kind of show you how I'm going to implement some of the things we're going to talk about in kind of a real world scenario. I will reference a website a couple times, and so I thought I'd share it with you now. It's chatgptexperiment.com. Dana had mentioned a LinkedIn newsletter and a podcast, and I'm using chatgptexperiment.com as the hub for the resources that I'm putting together as I really just experiment and play myself and learn, rinse, and repeat the good stuff. I say that because on the website you're going to find podcast episodes and articles that I've created from some of those podcast episodes, as well as outside podcasts yet to come. And I went through the list of applicants and questions and topics beforehand just to get a feel for what folks were thinking about and who's here. And I would say at least 75% of the topics and the questions and the scenarios have additional resources at chatgptexperiment.com. For instance, I've done an episode. I know we have a lot of HR folks and workforce people here. I went through that list. I did an episode on using chat for job descriptions, recruiting, and retention. And there's 3 or 4 ways in which I've found working with HR folks that this can become highly valuable. I saw some marketing folks. There are writing and content questions. And so I share this not to deflect what we're going to talk about today, but we can only cover so much in a half hour, 45 minutes. And each of those episodes are 20, 25 minutes on a topic. And so there is some writing, how to use it for writing articles, how to find your voice, tone, and style if you're creating resources using ChatGPT. Like I said, workforce stuff. There's role playing. That's been fascinating for me. And I'll get into that a little bit. But if you've ever been in situations where you want to kind of practice either a conversation with a client or associate or a family member, role playing with ChatGPT has become something that I do quite regularly. And then whenever I have a workshop, I always want to offer those that are participating. If you find yourself in a situation, I shared at the beginning that I work with organizations to help solve marketing problems. If you have a situation at your business or your organization, I do a lot of work with nonprofits as well. And you'd like to do a brainstorming exercise just to see how it might be attacked, whether we're using ChatGPT or not. At the website, ChatGPT Experiment, there is a Let's Talk button. And there's different scenarios that I put in there, in fact, to kind of categorize what you might want to talk to me about. But if you want to have a brainstorming session about a project or how you'd implement chat for just fill out the form. I'm doing a couple a week. When I do workshops, I offer that. So just fill out the form, let me know what you're thinking about. Let me know what's top of mind and what you might want to play out. I'd be happy to get in touch with you and kind of see what we can do. All right, so let's get into this thing. So ChatGPT is just one form of artificial intelligence, AI. And most people, when I ask about AI, it creates some tension. It creates some anxiety because AI can be anything from walking robots to flying cars to all this fancy stuff. And so one of the things that I like to do at the very beginning when I'm talking with your clients or even my own employees is we kind of recategorize or change the definition of what AI is. And I think it helps bring perspective and scope. So we say AI is an amazing instrument. And what I mean by that is it's something there for you, but you've got to be involved. You've got to bring a talent, a skill, experience, and expertise, perspective for it to be valuable to you. Much like a piano or a guitar, just sitting there is not going to do anything for you. It's how you apply it, what you want to do with it. And that same piano and guitar can be played in many different ways and satisfy many different goals. And chat works a lot like that. I also want you to know, despite the complimentary introduction that Dana gave, there are no experts in this field. There's just people that have made a lot more mistakes than others. And this is so new. We're just over a year, really, for this being released. And so don't be intimidated if you are just now looking at this. There's no behind the eight ball here. In fact, maybe some of the things, it's changing so fast that maybe some of the things that I'll reference today aren't even true anymore. I hope they are, but the ability for us to keep up with all of the new features and functions is intimidating. It's exhausting. And so what I'm going to talk about today are just guiding principles that will serve you well, regardless of what the latest feature is, what the latest function is. It's really a way of kind of taking a breath and looking at it from a big picture and understanding how other people are using it and perhaps how it might work for you. But you are the key to this. And just like that instrument that we were talking about, it requires human input. There's been a lot of discussion, and again, back to workforce, of jobs being replaced by AI. And I personally think it's more likely that a job's going to be replaced by a human that knows how to use AI rather than a human job, in most of our regards, being replaced by AI. And certainly there's exceptions to that, but I really do think that the ability to understand how to use a tool like ChatGPT will have significant value in the coming years in terms of business recruitment and how businesses are planning. I do want to say, however, that one of the vanguards that we put out is this is a public tool, right? There are exceptions. Companies can invest and have private kind of infrastructure, but that's by far not the norm. And this is a public tool. So it is what's called a learning language model. And what that means is it's learning from the inputs and conversations and data sets that it's getting. And those are coming from you and I. And the ability to understand that it's public means private information. I know we've got some healthcare folks here. So medical information, financial information, sensitive information about yourself or others is something to stay away from this, because you're putting it into the ethos, you're putting it into the ecosystem, and that's going to become part of this learning model. So if you don't want it to be public, if you wouldn't want it on social, if you wouldn't want it in the paper and television, that's something to stay away from, and just be sensitive to the fact that yes, it's on your computer and yes, it's on your account, but every interaction you have with it is kind of contributing, isn't it, to that learning model. By definition, it's learning from all the interactions that we're having. And the last thing I'll say as a vanguard up front, as part of the guiding principles, is this is literally the worst it's ever going to be in terms of function and form and performance and results. It's growing and changing and improving all the time. It's learning on itself. The programming's learning on itself. So as you were using it, and I'll start literally from where is this thing and how do I find it here in just a second. But as you're using it, know that this literally is the worst it's ever going to be. It is making mistakes. It does forget things. It does give you answers that will make you scratch your head at times, which is where the human part comes in. The ability of having a human to review and participate and lend perspective and edit is important. It's not a do it for you type service. It really does require you to be a part of this. I say it's a lot like having an intern that doesn't know much about you, but it knows a lot about a lot of other things. And the more clear we are, the more direct and thorough we are in the instructions and in the feedback and the revisions that we give it, the better the product's going to be. So I'm going to share my screen here if I can. Let's see if we can get this up. And Dana, can you let me know if you do see my screen? You should be seeing a ChatGPT account or something. Yeah. So this is where you find ChatGPT. And Dana, I see your face. Did it just change? Are we looking at a new website just so I can get confirmation that?
Yes.
We are? Okay, great. So OpenAI.com is where ChatGPT lives. OpenAI is the company that created ChatGPT. And one of the options at the top, if you go there, is called ChatGPT. And I'm pulling this screen up because I want you to see the difference. Because one of the questions that I usually get are what is ChatGPT and what options do I have? And I'm looking for the menu to change. So we're here. So as we come down into ChatGPT, there's a lot of things that you can do with it. And there's two versions. There's a free version and a paid version. And I'll just go through this quickly because you can look at it yourself. I have found that the paid version is much more robust. It actually recognizes and understands and gives highly more valuable, but you don't have to pay for anything. This is a free platform that you can jump on. As you get started, you're going to see that the paid version gives you the ability of working with images, and like you can upload images and ask it questions about it. I did it the other day with a bottle of wine. My wife had a bottle of wine that we had at a restaurant. I took a picture of it and I asked ChatGPT, where can I find this? How much is it worth? That kind of stuff. How much would it, if we wanted to buy it? And it just tells you, hey, I'm reading it. I analyzed it and it tells me where it's going. So there's a lot that you can do. In one of the episodes in the podcast, you're going to see the ability of talking to it rather than just typing. So it has the ability of recognizing voice, much like Siri, whatnot, and it'll talk back to you as well. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do, but I share this because it's literally at openai.com and it looks like this. This is the interface to ChatGPT, and you can create new conversations. Think of these as new files. So here's a really practical way in which I used it this morning. Is sent over last night the list of folks that registered, and so I copied and pasted all of the positions into ChatGPT, and I just said, could you organize these by categories and just tell me the types of roles, the types of positions, the types of jobs that people have that will be attending it. And 10 seconds later, I get certainly, and it tells me that under education, there's going to be these types of positions. There's some executive management folks, and these are the types of positions that they listed. Human resources. So what it did there is it organized a lot of data for me, and it just gave me back a list of, as I asked for it, I just said, take all the job descriptions and organize them for me so I can understand who's part of this conversation. And that's really a practical way in which I use ChatGPT for, is take a lot of data and just ask it questions. So one of the things that I want to share with you is the easiest way, the absolute easiest way to get started is if you start an account and you have your account up, or if you do later, literally do this. Just say, this is who I am. This is my position. This is what I do. This is the company I'm at, whatever you want to give it for background. And the more background and the more detail, the better. Just share with it what your day looks like, what your job and what company you're at. And by the way, when I say that, like, talk to it, because it really does value conversation. And then just literally ask it, what can you do for me? So by giving it as much background as possible, don't think of this as like Google. That's one of the, I think, paradigm shifts. We're so used to just saying pizza shops near me, or, I'm looking for a car. The ChatGPT platform really works well with conversation, and the ability of giving it, it understands your language, it understands your questions, it understands your words. It really is like an interactive problem-solving partner. But that's the easiest way to get started, and you'd be very, very surprised at what you're going to get for an answer if you have not done this already. This is my job. This is my role. These are the things I'm accountable for. These are the things maybe I'm scored on, or I need to do on a regular basis. How can you help me? And it will give you back a list. And then from there, you just ask it more. Like, how could you do this? It might give you 10 things. You can say, tell me more. I'm going to do a live demo here in just a second so I can share with you specifically what we're doing or how to do this. But it values feedback like a person. And so once you've said, this is who I am, this is what I do, it's going to give you a list. When you say, tell me more or give me more detail, it does. It goes down and it gives you a little bit more detail. So for instance, I'm going to grab one of these here. Here's an okay. So I know we've got an HR manager. So I'm going to type it in here and just say, I am a HR manager or a healthcare organization. You can see I make more mistakes typing than most people, I am responsible for recruiting, interviewing, and hiring. How can you help me in my job? And let me scroll down because I was halfway up to a conversation. So let me scroll down to the bottom so you can see where I just typed it in. So you're watching live now. So I just told it that I'm an HR manager for a healthcare organization. I'm responsible for recruiting, interviewing, and hiring. How can you help me? And it's going to come back and it's going to say, I understand who you are. I understand what you do. Here's how I can help you specifically. I can help you with job description writing. I can help you with resume screening. I can help you with interview scheduling, interview preparation. I can help you with communicating. I can help you engagement. I can help you with onboarding process. I can design personalized training systems, on and on and on. And I'm going to grab one of these in just a second. And I'm going to say, tell me more. I'm going to wait for it to stop. But you can see in real time, if you haven't used this before, I gave it very little information. In fact, what I typically have learned is the more information I give it. For instance, on a workshop that I was doing a couple of weeks ago, I had a participant that when I asked for a specific scenario, they said, I'm putting together an RFP for a new website soon. And she said, I used ChatGPT and I didn't find any value. I said, well, what did you do? And she said, I typed it RFP for website. That's what we would do in Google. We would just say RFP and website, but you would never think of this for a second. You would never have an intern in your office and turn to them and just say RFP for website. And they would understand. You wouldn't have any expectations that they would understand what you meant, what you're looking for them to do, how they can be valuable, maybe what success looks like. So if you think about that way, we're really talking about the ability of talking to software with as much detail and background as possible to get something valuable. So what I shared with her was, let's do this. Tell me what kind of business you are. Tell me what you're looking to do. What are you frustrated with? Why are you looking to build a new website? What things are meaningful to you? And we told that to chat. And we said, this is what I'm doing. I'm an insurance agent. So you happen to be an insurance agent. These are the things we would like to have. These are the things we don't have. I'm looking for a company that can do X, Y, and Z. And by the way, the company we have now is not good at X, Y, or whatever it might be. And we fed it. And it came back and it said, I understand who you are and I understand what you need. Here's how I can help. And it started building out the RFP for the website. And she said it was probably 95% done. She went through and changed words and added a section, that kind of thing. But the ability for it to listen, and we all know it's not listening, but it's a learning model that's, it's programming in the background, but it really does feel like you're talking to someone that's there to help you. And she got significant value out of that one exercise, which is why I'm asking if you have a scenario that you want me to play out here live. I'm happy to do that. So I'm going to grab one of these. So job description writing, it says I can help craft clear and precise job descriptions. So I'm just going to literally ask it. I'm curious. I'm interested in learning more about how you can help with job descriptions. Tell me more. So I'm just going to dial in and say, I'm interested in that. And it's going to come back and say, certainly, here are some of the things that I can help you do. I can help you analyze your existing job descriptions. I can help you optimize titles and descriptions to get noticed. I can have more details in your roles. I can help you identify skills and requirements. I can help you identify competitor. It just keeps going on and on and on. And so what I'm showing you now is really meant for you to see how you can interact with ChatGPT as more than software. So you can really have a conversation. And when I introduce this to a lot of people, maybe you all, I can't see all your faces, but people start to go, I didn't know, like that's different than any software I've ever used. And so just understanding at the very basics of this whole thing that it's not Google. You're not just putting in 3 words and hoping that you get success. the ability for you to really give it detail. So there's three things that I teach on this regard: background, details, and revisions. So whether you are creating an article, a social media calendar, whether you want to do job descriptions, whether you want to review a website, the paid version can actually read the web. You can have it go and read the web. In fact, you can use ChatGPT, the paid version that can use the web. You can use it as Google. In fact, I have the app on my phone now, and I don't think I've used Google in a long time, except for map and directions. I ask Chat now all the questions that I would ask Google, and here's why I do that. The context, the ability for it to understand the context of the question that I'm asking is so good. It's night and day above anything that you would get using any search engine, that it just doesn't give you a bunch of links. Like, we're used to asking Google a question and then having it giving us a bunch of websites that we now have to go hunt and peck and see if there's anything of value. When I ask the same question to Chat, it talks to me. It understands why I'm asking, and it gives me context and details and clarity. It's really significantly different. In fact, I trust it far more now than I use Google because it saves me so much time and I get supporting details and context. So I gave you the job description scenario as an HR manager here as just background. And so one of the things that I would share with you is the three things that matter most. Background. So let's talk about background for a second. Again, whether it's a social media calendar or an article or analyzing the web or whatever it might be, the more background you can give it, the more situation information that you can give it about what you're doing, why you're doing it, what success looks like, what's important, the better. It's going to understand that, and it's going to put it into a process of understanding why you're talking to it. The second thing would be details of the moment. Once you've given it any background, and it can be as simple or complex as you want, literally tell it what you're looking to do. So for instance, let's say you're a marketing manager for a manufacturing company. Okay. You might say, I am I don't know if Carmel is here or not. I saw that she registered, but I am a marketing manager for a composite manufacturing company. And we make steel replacement parts based on technology that uses carbon fibers. And I'm looking to engage with the state DOT commissioners because our product, and this is the background, right? Because our product is going to be cheaper, faster, easier to use than steel in their infrastructure projects. And then you'd say, so this is why I'm asking for help. I need to put together some articles or some emails or a social media calendar that would help me get in front of my targeted audience. Can you help me do that? And just like you saw in the job description format that I said here, it'll come back and start talking to you. And then you just go from there. And you can tell it to ask you questions or whatnot. And the engagement, the conversation, the way in which it can listen, formulate perspectives, context, it's really fantastic. Before I jump on to how to use what you're seeing here in terms of the ChatGPT, I'm going to show you some things on how you can set your account up to make it more personal and make it more relevant to you. And I do have a few of these in the podcast on chatgptexperiment.com too. There's a couple podcasts and summaries on this, but ways in which people have jumped in and tried just using ChatGPT. Book summaries. If you're somebody that would like to read more books, business books specifically, but you don't get a chance to, try asking it to give you a summary, an executive summary and key takeaways of a particular business book or teaching manual. I've got a step-by-step guide on the website and a podcast on it, but it's a tremendous asset for getting executive summary and key insights and takeaways of books. If you were writing an article, and let's say you're into an article and you want some editing help, you can literally feed it to ChatGPT, give it background on why you're writing it and who the intended audiences are, and have it give you feedback. You can become an editor for you in real time. Transcription summaries. If any of you, I'm starting to use this a lot. If any of you do video calls, video interviews, whatever it might be, record them. If you want a summary, or if you are interviewing somebody for an article, or if you're doing work inside your company that you'd like to have a written form later, use video or a video call for that, and use a tool that allows you to get a transcription of that interview in the written word. And then just literally feed the transcription to ChatGPT and say, I would like a summary on this. Or here's an interview I did with somebody, and I'd like to do an article, or I'd like to do 10 blog posts, or I'd like to do some social media, whatever it might be, give it the background. But it will take that conversation, that transcription, and it'll organize it however you want it. And it'll give you the article or blog posts or social media posts. And the reason I use that, and the reason a lot of people find that tip valuable, is if you're like me, you've already seen my typing skills. So I talk in a much different way than I type. I am frustrated at times looking at a blank piece of paper. If I need to write an article or if I need to write a paper, staring at a blank screen or a blank piece of paper can be intimidating, because where do you start? How do you start getting all those things out of your head? I have spoken to ChatGPT directly, or done a video recording or an auto recording of myself when I go to write an article or an insight report, just for the sake of getting stuff out of my head. No real order, no logic to what I'm saying. I just need to get it all out. And then I'll feed that transcription to chat, and I'll say, could you make sense of my ramblings? Again, I'm going to follow my own advice. Here's the background. Here's what I did, and here's what success looks like. This is why I'm asking for help. I'm going to give you a transcript of my ramblings. My goal is to have a memo that can be presented to a client that talks about insights, problems, and recommendations. Could you put that together for me? And it'll go through and it will read the transcript. It'll organize the thoughts and give you a logical outline. Again, revisions is important, that you can start to manipulate and edit with, right? But the feeling of eliminating the white piece of paper or the blank screen and getting to somewhere meaningful with your own thoughts, with your own perspective and your own information is very powerful, empowering. And as I looked at the reasons people were signing up today and some of the questions they had, there was a lot of mention of the word efficiencies. And when you can find something in your life, professional or personal, by the way, I use it for groceries all the time. When you can find something in your life that you are doing repeatedly, and oftentimes it's what we end up doing is spending so much time building something that we don't get enough time to give thought or insight or perspective, right, or analysis, because a lot of our time is spent getting to something that we can either read, use, or share. If you could expedite the work it takes to get to the end product, so you could spend more time analyzing or giving insights or digging into it, that's really where chat can come into play. And I'll give you a very specific, for instance, from my world. When I have a sales call or a biz dev meeting with a potential client, I have what's called a recap memo that I give to them when I'm done. That's my next step in my professional world. I'll spend a half hour, 45 minutes with somebody talking about problems and talking about what their pain points are and what's that look like and what have you dealt with and what would success look like. I just pull it all out and I'll record that. And then I have a memo format that I've been using for years. And what I've done is I've taken that memo and I've fed it into chat and I've said, this is the structure that I like to use. And I've given it 3 or 4 just so it can see repetition. So it can see what I mean by structure. It recognizes the format of the memo that I use. And then I say, take that memo and take my transcription, create a new memo from what I'm giving you for information. And it will pull the highlights and relevant points, knowing the format that I like to use in the document, pulls it from the transcription and gives me a document that's probably 80, 90% ready to use, right? And then I'll go in and edit it. So I'm jumping real ahead. I get excited about sharing because I've seen a lot of your comments about efficiencies and how do I use it in my world. And I introduced this by saying, your curiosity is important, right? Your perspective is important. What you do is relevant. This isn't software like Photoshop where you're learning to do something specific that someone else will do too. This is really an open canvas for you to use it as it makes the most sense to your position. So I'm sharing with you a few ways in which I've done that. I do have a few questions that came in. Ivan asked, how reliable are the answers? That's a great question, Ivan. And I'm a fan of Ronald Reagan's comment from the early 80s where it was trust but verify. And trust but verify is tremendous advice for here. And I'll show you. In fact, prior to this, I opened up another browser. And I need to get this out of the way. So if my screen is probably still here. I mentioned there's a paid version and there's a free version of ChatGPT. So this browser that I have open now is the free version. So it's called Chat 3.5. The paid version is called 4. And so this morning, I wanted to see if the free version still did not have the ability of reading the web. And so I asked it, this is my website, Sutherland Weston. I said, can you please review my website? And it said, of course. Then it went out and it came back and said, overall, and gave me this feedback. It's professional, but you need all these things, right? And so I scratched my head, Ivan, this is to your point. I scratched my head and I said, well, that doesn't make sense to me. So I literally asked it, did you actually review my website just now? And it said, oh, I apologize. I did not actually review your website. I'm just making stuff up based on my library. So Ivan right there, and I said, can you please visit the website? And it says, I can't, right? So it does this sometimes. It'll give you answers and then you can see just like I have kids. So I'm thinking like, this could be my 12-year-old son, right? I could ask you, did you do this? And they'll say, yes. And I'll say, did you actually do it? Well, no, right? That happens a lot. So I treat ChatGPT sometimes like Spencer. And I say, did you really do that? And it'll come back and go, whatever. No, I've given it math problems before, and it'll come back and it'll say, is 5, 20% of whatever, 25, and it'll say no. It'll say, really? Can you check that? And it'll come back, oh, actually, yes. And I don't know if that's right or not. I'm just doing math out loud, but sometimes you do have to, which is why at the beginning, you are important, right? The ability for you to be involved, the ability for the human to be involved, the ability for you to bring context and perspective and questions to it is absolutely important. So the screen that you're looking at now, when you create your ChatGPT, this is the basic beginning. When you create a new chat, each of these chats that you see on the side, each of these lists here, just for reference to something that will make sense to you, think of these as files. These are conversations. These are individual conversations, but think of them as files. The information that lives in each one of these is relevant to itself, but it will learn as you talk to it inside each of these conversations and you give it more info and feedback and revisions, right? So it will learn from it and it'll build upon itself inside this single conversation. Once you start a new conversation, even though it's your account and even though they're really close to each other, these are independent entities, and what you did in one conversation doesn't transfer over to another. So the ability for you to, let's say the job description scenario that you just saw me create, if I were to create a new conversation and start talking about job descriptions in my position and how it can help, it will learn every time I say, that's good. Can you tell me more? Or can we revise this particular job description? Or can you help me create language that will recruit folks for this job? It'll learn in and of itself. But the minute I start a new chat, it doesn't know I did that. So it's absolutely independent. And these conversations you can come back to. So you could start a conversation on one particular topic, whether it be an article, or I mentioned role playing before, like maybe there's this scenario that you want to address and it's a scenario or a person or a situation that you might find again, right? Maybe you just have a chat based on that role playing scenario and you can come back to it a week from now and it'll still be in that mindset as long as you're in that conversation. But the minute you go to a new conversation, it's as if you've never talked to it before on that topic, right? So someone had asked at the beginning, how do I train it or how do I give it more details about myself? So one of the things that is important here, in that regard. And I do have an episode and an article on ChatGPT experiment on this. It's called Custom Instructions. So when you click on your name, when you do create your account, if you click on your name, you're going to get this little mini menu that pops up. And one of the mini menus is custom instructions. And it's going to give you a spot to do two things. It's going to say, what would you like ChatGPT to know about you? And then how would you like ChatGPT to respond? Okay. So in these areas, you're going to have some text fields where you can give it some background. Now, most of you, I would imagine, are going to be using ChatGPT for yourself and probably one company or one organization, one purpose. I don't. I use it for myself, but I also use it for clients. I use it for my own personal projects and whatnot. And so that's a little more complex. So I'm going to speak to this as if you don't have that scenario. You could tell chat your position, your company, what you do, how long you've been doing it. You can feed it that information. And then you can give it specific instructions. Say, I don't like fluff or jargon. I like to be practical or straightforward, or I like to be academic, or I like to be funny. In the second box that pops up when you get into custom instructions, how would you like ChatGPT to respond? You could say, I want every reply from you to be in Shakespearean English. You could do whatever you like here. This is where you customize it. You could have it be puns or knock-knock jokes, whatever you want to do. The point here is this is your place to tell chat how you'd like to work with it. There's not enough time to go through all the nuances of what I've learned in this regard. There is an episode, like I said, on custom instructions, voice, tone, and style. But I will share this. If you are going to use chat for writing, so I define writing as anything, blog posts, articles, papers, emails, social media, whatever it might be. And you are writing it for your organization, you're writing it for your position. It's in your best interest to be as personalized and specific as you can as you build out these custom instructions. And I would recommend, and there's, again, back to the website, there's ways of doing this. And I've given you actual prompts that you could copy and use. But keep that information outside of ChatGPT for safekeeping, because sometimes it will forget, and you never know when chat's just going to change and something that you rely on isn't there anymore. But the more, again, detail and specificity that you can give it on how you like to write. Here's a tip. If you are a writer and you have a number of articles that you've already posted somewhere already, be it on your website or blog or whatnot, you can feed it to chat and say, listen, these are my past writings. Could you analyze it and find the consistencies in voice, tone, and style? Because this is how I like to write moving forward. And then give it ideas, right? And it will say, okay, great. I think I can see what you're doing, how you're doing it, and we can apply to that. Couple questions coming up here today. So Chris says privacy issues. Yeah, I think I hit on that one, Chris, in terms of if you don't want it to be public, don't do it. I have noticed, by the way, I tried this. I wouldn't recommend it, but because I don't really know what it does. But I did give it a spreadsheet at one point, because the paid version, you can feed it files. So if you had a spreadsheet with a bunch of information, you can feed the file to ChatGPT and then work from the file, organize this, tell me trends, whatnot. I just did a large research project with an energy service client, and they did the customer survey. And we had 2,500 customers fill out the survey and give us data. And I fed the Excel spreadsheet of the finished survey into chat. And then I said, give me trends, give me the positive comments, give me the negative comments. Can you categorize them? And it does. We're working from that data set moving forward. But I have tried this. I have loaded a file to chat before and then said, by the way, when you're done, delete this so it doesn't exist anymore. And it says it's done it, but I have no way, right, of knowing if it did or not. Terry asks, if I train the chat to create a amortization schedule for a 20-year loan, could it do this with future? Yes, it can. Yep. It can do math. I use it for, I like to use Excel, but I don't know anything about Excel formulas, right? And so I literally will say, I need a formula for Excel that does this. And it'll say, okay, copy and paste this into the cell, and there you go. I mean, more advanced stuff. It will write code for you. You can create PowerPoint presentations and have it export directly to PowerPoint. So you're up and running right off the bat. But yes, you can do math. And if you created, Terry, a chat, right, a conversation about that schedule, and you gave it a formula, the next time you go in, if the variables change, like the numbers change and whatnot, you can just tell it that, and it'll remember what it did before. Now, there's an asterisk here. The ability for you to remind it that it's supposed to do something is important, because it, again, just like my 12-year-old Spencer, we go to school every morning, right? But you're supposed to have your backpack and your lunch and sometimes the backpack's in the kitchen when we're in the truck. So if you have kids, you know what I'm talking about. Chat does this. Sometimes we'll be going along and it'll just do something. You're like, I thought we already talked about this. And it'll say, oh yes, thank you for the reminder. Which is why I say keep stuff outside of ChatGPT if it's important to you. If there are instructions or overviews or voice tone and style details, or Terry, that schedule, right? The ability for you to have it somewhere else, because at some point, chat's going to act like that 12-year-old boy and forget its backpack. And you're going to go, hey, wait a minute. And then you could paste it back in and say, remember the rules? Like, this is what we're doing here. Oh yeah, thanks. Right. We'll go from there. Brad's asking, there's many advantages, concerns, and dangers. Boy, there's a long list there, right? And if you're a lawyer, 2024 is probably going to be the year of legal activity when it comes to AI and ChatGPT. So there's a long list here, Brad, to be honest. I would say from a practical point of view, the biggest concern and the biggest danger is a human using ChatGPT and thinking it doesn't have to be involved in the revision or giving it just trusting it completely, right? Trust but verify is where I would go with that. I've seen an article last week where people are using ChatGPT to create product descriptions for their Amazon stores, and then reading it before they put it up. And the title of the product is, I'm not allowed to do this because of copyright concerns. Like, that's the actual title of the product because no one paid attention to it. So I would say the most practical answer, Brad, is completely trusting it without any concern. That would be my greatest danger moving forward. All right, Doreen, how to use a form. So if you have the paid version, Doreen, you can, here you see this paperclip. So this is my engagement, right? This is my chat box with ChatGPT. This is where I type it. But if I click that paperclip, I can add a form, right? And my client is RH Foster. That's the survey spreadsheet that pops up here. So I could have fed that in. But yeah, that's how you do it. You just literally click that paperclip, load a form. I can load a picture. So the other day, probably a month ago, I took a picture of my book library at home, with all of the books that I've read through the years. I took a picture of it, fed it to ChatGPT and said, could you read the book titles and authors and tell me who I have here and give me a couple suggestions because I would like to buy a new book. This is what I like to read. This is where I've been. Could you give me some suggestions? It looked at the photo. It read all of the book spines. It organized all of my titles. It showed me all of my authors. And it said, based on your history, here are some books and authors that you might find interesting. It was fantastic. Haley's saying, feel like it's cheating or plagiarizing. Yeah, sure. So think of it this way. If you were to say, I need an article on XYZ, give it to me, and it did, and you didn't have any input on it, then I can understand that's where you're going. It's kind of, but for cheating, the way I work around that is there have been many advancements through the years, from the internet as a whole to Google to a tractor, right? That made farming easier, to roadside service for Hannaford and Walmart. Like, there's things in our lives that are making things easier and more efficient. So I don't think cheating comes into play in my mind. This is really a tool, which is why I introduced it at the beginning as an amazing instrument. It's the ability for you to use it to your concern. And I know we're coming up close here, so I'm just trying to get through these. But Haley, it comes up time and time again. And I remember when I was in school, or my coming out of school in Google, the internet was going to be the cheating platform, right? And it's funny how we look at that and say changes lead to, if it's harder, if it must be better. So these are just easier ways of getting some valuable output. Hackers use ChatGPT to write malicious code. 100%. Yep, 100%. If you can think, just like everything in life, if there's an evil way to use something, someone's going to, right? This is a presidential year, for instance, and you can use not ChatGPT specifically, but you can use AI to create videos, right, of real people talking. Can you imagine? Think about the Facebook dilemma, just Facebook and Twitter dilemma that was up in the last election and how invasive that was. Now we have the ability of creating fake videos, and I mean, it's just going to be enormously controversial. So 100%, yeah, this could be used for evil and confusion. 100%. Yep. Yep. Dana, I know there's going to be some questions, but we're coming up on the hour, and I want to make sure that you get what you need to say, and I'll stay and ask any questions that people have for sure.
Well, thank you very much, Cary. In fact, I can't thank you enough, be quite honest, because as we began this program, my comment was should we revere this or should we fear it? And you have been very encouraging and enlightening in terms of putting my mind at ease that, yeah, you do have to trust and verify. And yes, if you don't want something to be seen by everyone, if it's private or proprietary in nature, you shouldn't be posting it. You shouldn't be using it in this regard. So, but I know that you use the term that expert is relative, but I've got to tell you, based upon what you've shared with us today, you come about as close to being an expert on this issue as anybody I've heard from or been witness to. So I can't thank you enough. We will stay on, as you said, but there are a few things that I've been asked to provide as we close out today. I certainly want to thank all, in addition to you, Cary, all who have participated today. And I think you would agree that it has been very worthwhile and very encouraging and certainly an opportunity to be judged carefully, but certainly it's there for us to avail ourselves of. And this information will be provided for each of you. I think Cary mentioned this and Heather did at the very outset, but everyone will receive a copy of this webinar and the recording and resources that are mentioned in the call today. And we encourage you to share it with your colleagues or counterparts, whoever you feel it would be appropriate to benefit from. I also want to say that this webinar is part of a series that the Alfond Center brings to us, and it's called the Business Blueprint Series. This is a third. Very first one was about remote work. The second one was the Merit, which is Maine's new retirement savings plan. And today, both the attendance as well as the timeliness of this really hit the mark. And as you can see on your screen, the very next program that we're going to have is the Dirigo Business Incentive Program. It's in February, and it took programs of the past, consolidated, and made them actually more timely and profitable for the business community. And we hope to have our Commissioner of the Department of Economic and Community Development, Heather Johnson, to be with us to help us understand that better and to meet your needs better. But as you can see, there are, after that one, 4 more, and they're all timely, and they all are intending to help the business, what you need to know about recovery in the workplace, the new Mainer advantage, right skills, right person, right role, and how and why to hire returned citizens. Dan mentioned at the outset, but Maine is very fortunate because we do have the Alfond Center, and not only will they be exploring topics that we've just heard to provide us the information, they are there to address Maine's workforce and give employers access to grant funding for professional development. Don't forget the fact that employers can sign up to be a member of the Maine Workforce Development Compact and receive up to $1,200 match per employee for training purposes. It's free to join, and the application only takes a couple of minutes. Learn more at bit.ly/Maine Compact. With that, I thank you all, but you still have questions, and Cary has been gracious to stay with us. So the floor is yours. Cary, do you see any further questions that have come?
I don't see any. I appreciate the comments and the feedback. I'm glad you folks found it valuable. But yeah, if you have any specifics, throw it at me. It's too cold for me to. It's too cold for me to go outside, so I'm going to be in the hotel room anyway.
So Dan, Heather, anyone else? I think we all join in saying thank you, Cary. You have been a rich resource for us, and we can't thank you enough.
Yeah. I will share one tip, Dana, because I know there's some people here and maybe this will spark a question. But one of the questions that I get a lot is how do I actually write with this thing? Like, how do I actually start a conversation, write an article, edit it, whatnot? Here's a tip that I've used. And again, I think there's an episode on the podcast. The ability to think in an outline format. So if you think as a cone, the more general to more specific, right? Wide at the top and then get real specific. If you have an idea of what you want to write, and you can create an outline, just a simple bulleted outline, and you can give ChatGPT a little bit of background and tell it who it is. I'm a marketing expert, I'm a professor, I'm a plumber, whatever it might be. And here's the article I want to write. I'm thinking about writing about this. Here's my outline. And then feed it to it and said, help me, let's get started. Give me some ideas. And it will start to take your outline and it will create details and bullet points as to things that, right? And then you can tell it, I like that. I don't like this. Let's give me more of that. Give me less of this. And it'll, great. Okay, let's revise it. And it'll take that outline and it'll start to build out the making of an article to the point where you can say, this looks really good. This looks like a really good detailed outline. Let's get a first draft going. And then it'll start to build it from you. So it's a good brainstorming tool moving forward. I saw Justice's question about what are the competitors for ChatGPT. There's a lot. I don't know them all. And like I said, it's probably since we started this webinar, probably another one popped up. Microsoft is a big investor in the company that is producing ChatGPT. So Microsoft has used some of this technology in their own into Office products, into their search engine. I have found a number of options when it comes to that kind of learning model ChatGPT, but I haven't found one as robust yet. So that'd be a great Google question or even a ChatGPT question. But for what I've found, chat has been the most informative. So Terry asked, "Can you talk with it?" Yes. In fact, again, there is an article in a podcast that I did on this, but I don't type to it anymore because I'm a horrible typer, Terry. So what I do is I talk to it. I've set up my Mac for voice transcription, so I have a keystroke that I can use instead of keyboard. So when I hit that keystroke, I can talk to it. The app itself will talk back to you while creating a text transcription of the conversation. If you have a Mac, I use my iPad a lot. It has a microphone on the keyboard itself on the iPad. And so I talk to it because I can talk in a much more fluid and organized way. Usually I'm much more thorough and detailed when I talk than when I type. And so, yes, that's what I do. Yeah. Copilot is one, just of course. Yep. Google Bard. There's a lot of them out there. I've just been just focusing on one because I've figured out how to use it and it works well for me. I've been asked, how pervasive do you think it's going to be in the future? 52 trips around the sun. Yeah, it's going to be everywhere. So this feels a lot to me. If you remember the early 2000s where the internet and e-commerce was a thing, and anyone with a URL seems like they could get $1 million for their idea. And there's a lot of venture funding and a lot of companies started and a lot of companies died. That's where we're at right now. It kind of feels like the wild, wild west of AI. There's a lot of private equity money trying to tap into the next great idea. So there's a lot of AI ventures that are starting. There's going to be a lot of consolidation in the future, but every software, to your question, Ivan, every software that I can think of, from HubSpot and Salesforce to the basics of Microsoft Office to anything in between, is working in what they're calling AI, right? My goodness, if you go to LinkedIn now, and go to start a post, it'll literally say, do you want AI to write the post for you? So there are elements of AI we're already using it too, by the way. If you think about it, if you listen to Spotify, if you watch Netflix, right? Any of those suggestions for you is just background AI looking at patterns and data and then giving you suggestions. So very, very pervasive everywhere. There's no turning back at this point. We're expediting and making things more automated for sure. Yep, 100%.
Cary, I asked this probably as a final question, but you referenced this capacity to the likeness of an intern. To me, it sounds more like an assistant. Do you ever get the question or the concern that my job is going to be threatened by virtue of its presence?
Yep, 100%. So that's at the beginning. I hear a lot, will my human job be replaced by AI? And for most of us, the answer is going to be no, because there's still a need for human. But I do say, and I do believe this, that it's more likely that your human job is going to be replaced by a human who knows how to use AI better than you. That's the threat.
Yeah.
However, let's just talk about a real, for instance, over the last 14 days, if you've read the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or any financial, you've seen Google, Amazon, really large tech companies lay off thousands and thousands of people. They're closing divisions and they're laying off thousands of people. And in the same article, this is what caught my eye, because the patterns, the ebb and flow of tech hiring and firing has just been around forever. But the article that caught my mind was Google laid off there's 2,000 people, 1,500 people. They closed the division. And in that same article, they said there is a hiring spree, not freeze. There's a hiring spree coming. What that tells me is they are closing positions, right? And then reinvesting into other areas. And reinvesting in other areas has 100% to do with AI and automation moving forward. So it's a shift in priorities for sure.
Well, seeing no further questions, I think I'm correct in saying that, and knowing that you have been more than gracious with your time and certainly the information you've shared with all of us, I feel so much better. And I know it's an evolving issue and there's more to come, like you've said, but boy, you've given us a wonderful beginning. And as I said before, I repeat myself on behalf of Heather and Dan and all the people who attended today. Thank you so very much. It's extremely helpful.
My pleasure.
We look forward to even more. And to all of you, we look forward to seeing you right back here in February when we talk about the new program, the Dirigo Business Incentive. We look forward to that. And as they say in show business, I think it's a wrap.